If you watch this video until the end, you will have a much better understanding of all of those conditionals. Stay tuned. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Lloyd's Everyday English. It's a pleasure to have you with me wherever you're watching from in the world. If you've never seen me before on this channel, I help to take your English to the next level with lessons like this one. So make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not yet already, and the notification bell as well. It's very important so you don't miss another video. Now, in today's lesson, I'm going to cover all of the conditionals, all of them. Well, there's only 5, but yeah. I have actually made some videos, a few videos about 3 years ago now, maybe 4 years ago on this channel about conditionals. If you click here, you can check them out. But I wanted to make a new video, kind of to summarize all of them, and just to make it as simple and as clear as possible so that you can see how to use them. And also, if you watch until the end, I'm going to give you a few bonus tips as well on how to avoid sounding unnatural when you are using conditionals. So make sure you stick around until the end for that. But today's topic was actually requested by one of our members in our private community. That's right, we have a private English learning community with live lessons every day on Facebook and on Zoom, where you can continue your English learning journey inside of a fantastic supportive community, and you can become even more confident and fluent in English. For more information on English TV Live, which is the name of our community, just click here and we will love to see you. We would love to see you inside. There we go. All right, so why don't we get into it then? So all of the conditionals. What conditionals are there? Well, there is the zero conditional. Then there is the first conditional, or maybe I should say it like this. Then we have the second conditional, we have the third conditional, but that's not it. We also have the mixed conditionals, and I think that's probably one of the trickiest ones. So I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can to help you to understand. Thank you to Gulnar, by the way, as I said, one of the members in our private community who requested this topic. Conditionals. So we're going to start off with the zero and make our way all the way to mixed. Zero conditionals. This is probably the easiest one. Now, zero conditionals. This is simply something which is 100% true. It can be scientific, could be a fact, something related to physics, a certainty. If something happens, this happens. And that is the structure of a zero conditional. So the structure is if plus present simple, then present simple. That's it. Present simple plus present simple. And we use if in the first clause of conditional sentences like this. You can also, by the way, you can switch it around. So you don't have to have if at the beginning. It can be in the second clause. And in a zero conditional, you don't only have to use if, you can also use when as well. So we'll look at some examples right now. If you heat ice, this is probably the most classic example. If you heat ice, it melts, right? I mean, that's just what happens 100% of the time. You heat ice, it melts. If you heat ice, it melts. Or ice will melt if you heat it, okay? You are hungry if you don't eat all day. So remember I said you don't have to have if at the beginning. You can have it in the second clause. So you are hungry if you don't eat all day. Or if you don't eat all day, you are hungry. I would actually say it sounds better like this. It's true, of course. I mean, I'm actually a little bit hungry right now. So if you don't eat all day, you are hungry, right? I mean, that's just logical. Now, this is my story, and anybody with pale skin can probably, for anybody, but especially people with pale skin, pale British skin like me, this is the sentence that would apply to you. So if I don't wear sun cream, or if you don't wear sun cream, if he doesn't wear sun cream, so you can change the pronoun around there. My skin burns, right? That is just how it goes. If I were to stand or sit in the sun for several hours with no sun cream in the hot sun in the summer, it's not going to be it's not going to be a happy ending. So if I don't wear sun cream, my skin burns. Zero conditional. It's going to happen every time, unfortunately. Going to fry like bacon. Glass breaks when you drop it on the hard ground. Remember I said you can use when instead of if. So glass breaks if you drop it on the hard ground. If you drop a wine glass, a beer glass on the hard ground, on the concrete, on a hard surface, it breaks. That's just a fact, right? So I'm going to give you as many examples as I can just to really, drum it into you. So if you are very tired, you fall asleep. That's just how your body works. It's just a scientific thing. You're very tired, you fall asleep. If you are very tired, you fall asleep. You fall asleep if you are very tired. And here is one for me, which is, I can't teach my students if my internet connection dies. Present simple, present simple. So in my case, I am an online teacher. All of my students, you guys watching right now, you are all over the world. You are dotted all over the world. So if my internet connection dies, I can't teach you. I can't teach my students. It's impossible. The only method I have to teach my students is through the internet. So if I can't, if my internet doesn't work, if my internet connection goes down, then no lessons from Lloyd, no Lloyd's Everyday English. Now, let's move on to the first conditional. Hopefully now the zero conditional should be nice and clear. And yeah, as I said, this is for scientific things, just kind of basic, clear facts. Now let's move on to the first conditional, because this is going to be a little bit more common. Now the first conditional, a little bit big here, see if I can make it a bit smaller, put it down a bit. All right, the first conditional. Now this is highly likely or possible situations. So it could be very likely or it's quite likely. So it's possible, it's very possible. Situations and their results. So it's not 100% certain. The difference between the zero conditional and the first conditional is that a zero conditional is 100% true. If this happens, then this happens, right? But with the first conditional, if this happens, then, probably this will happen. And we use will, as we'll see in a second here. So that's the important difference. Imagine that zero conditional is kind of like, zero conditional is like 100%, and then first conditional is like maybe 90%, 80%, could even be like 50%. It depends, because you can use some different modal verbs to explain that, like might, could, etc. So the structure of the first conditional is if plus present simple, then will infinitive, okay? So you can also exchange will for modal verbs. So could or may or might. But the most common one will be will, all right? And you will find as well, that even for these things I just mentioned here with the zero conditional, you could actually probably use the first conditional for them as well. So for example, I said, if you drop the glass, it will break, right? So you can use the first conditional structure as well. So let's look at some examples of the first conditional. Remember the structure I just mentioned there. So if I find these shoes, okay, so let's look at the structure one more time, just to recap. If present simple, will infinitive. So if I find these shoes in my size, I will buy them. Now, this is. Have you ever had this experience before? You find the perfect shoes that you want, and then you realize, oh, they don't have my size. Now, this often happens to me because I have pretty big feet, so it happens to me. Luckily, with online shopping these days, you can sometimes find bigger sizes, but not always. For some shoes, they don't have the biggest sizes, which is kind of tragic. Now, here is my strong intention. I really like these shoes. I really like these shoes. So if I find them in my size, I will buy them, right? I'm determined. And probably this will happen. This will happen. So if I find these shoes in my size, I will buy them. Probably. But it's not 100% certain. Maybe I will realize they're too expensive. Or I'll change my mind. I'll find another pair of shoes that I like even more. Or I'll decide I want a different color. There's many, many different possible outcomes that could prevent me from actually buying the shoes. So it's not 100%. If he asks her to marry him, she'll probably say yes. So in this case, she'll is she will. So we could use words like probably, right, to show the probability. Now, let's say this couple has been together for a long time. They're very happy. So if he asks her to marry him, I think she will say yes. She might say yes. She could say yes, right? You see it's going down, the possibilities. So it's not 100% though. I mean, maybe this woman could decide, actually, I really like you, but I don't want to get married. Or maybe she has another secret boyfriend. Who knows what could be happening? So it's not 100%, unfortunately. But, it's a strong possibility that she will say yes. Oh, okay. Hold on a moment. After this lesson, I might go for a run. After I have finished this lesson, I might go for a run. I'm not sure if I'm going to have time. I have a few more lessons after this. So it's not 100%, but I might go for a run. If I was more certain, then I could say, after this lesson, I think I will go for a run. I will definitely go for a run. Now, different things could happen. It could start to rain. You could, I don't know, you could have an injury, or you could suddenly become very tired, or your friend could come over. There's many reasons why this might not happen. So, another example, if the weather is good tomorrow, first conditional again, I'll go to the beach. So I really want to go to the beach tomorrow. But again, something could happen. Maybe I have a sudden appointment or an emergency, or I just change my mind. So it's not 100%. I hope you're getting the idea. The reason I'm giving lots of examples is just to, as I said, just to make it as clear as possible. You will surely pass the exam if you study hard. Again, I've switched the clauses here just to show you that you don't have to have if at the beginning. So you will surely pass the exam if you study hard. It's not a zero conditional though, because, you could study very hard, but maybe in the exam you, I don't know, you have a panic attack, or you get some strange questions in the exam, or you make a mistake, or you don't sleep enough the night before and your brain is not working properly. There's many things that could happen. So that is the first conditional in English, and the zero conditional. So hopefully that is clear. Now let's move on to the next one. So remember, we had the zero conditional, which means it's 100%. First conditional, it's pretty likely. Second conditional, however, means it's unlikely or even impossible. Now it depends on the context, but either unlikely or impossible situations and their results in the present or future. So first conditional as well can be present or future. Second conditional can also be present or future, but the likelihood has gone from here to way down, or even impossible. And another interesting thing about the second conditional is you can use it to give advice. We will look at an example of that in a moment. So, what is the structure of this magical second conditional? Well, we can say if plus past simple, then would plus infinitive. One more time. If past simple, then would plus infinitive. Now, the thing here, the confusing thing, is that I'm not actually really talking about the past. I'm talking about the present or future, but the structure is using the past simple, which is kind of strange. But that's how it is. So, for example, if I were the president, I would change many things, right? Just before I made this video, I got a notification on my phone saying that it looks like Joe Biden will defeat Donald Trump. It's not finished yet, but it's looking pretty good for Biden, pretty bad for Trump. So Biden is probably was probably saying this before the election. If I were president, I would change many things. Now, I'm not sure how many things he's going to change, but for example, now if I said this, it's if I said this, it's very unlikely. It's unlikely. I mean, who knows? If you vote for me, then maybe I could win the presidency. But it's unlikely that I will be president. But you never know. It's possible. So if I were president, now this could be in the present or future. If I were president, even though I'm using the past simple. So if I were president, I would change many things. I would infinitive. I would change many things. If I met Cristiano Ronaldo, I would ask him to take a selfie with me. All right? Just so I have some evidence that it really happened. If I met Cristiano Ronaldo, it's pretty unlikely. I'm not in the same country as him. I don't think I've ever been in the same room as him. But, maybe one day it's possible. It's possible. It's not impossible. If I met Cristiano Ronaldo, I'd ask him to take a selfie with me. Now this is probably the most common situation or example that you will see with the second conditional. If I won the lottery, I'd fly around. Now when we use the second conditional, we're kind of like imagining kind of unlikely things in the future. If I won the lottery, I'd fly around the world in first class. Okay? If I won, past simple, the lottery, I would infinitive. Infinitive here is fly. Okay? So the verb by itself is infinitive. Okay? I would fly around, bare infinitive without to. Okay, I'd fly around the world in first class. And remember I said as well that the interesting thing with the second conditional is that you can give advice. You can give advice using the second conditional. And it can be, like in this case, the sentence is, if I were you, I might apply for that job. Or I would apply for that job. So you can say would, or might, or may. Depends on, like, would is stronger, of course. Might is kind of in the middle. May. If I were you, I might apply for that job. Or if I were you, I would definitely apply for that job. Now, it is impossible, unfortunately. It's impossible for me to be you. As much as I would like to be you, I can't be, right? Now, it doesn't literally mean I want to be you. I'm not imagining myself as you. It's just the structure that we use to give advice. And you probably know this already, but this lesson is just about reviewing everything connected to conditionals. So if I were you, and you will also hear people, by the way, saying, if I was you. Even though if I were you is technically correct, you will also hear people say, if I was you. It's becoming more common these days. We'll talk about that again at the end with some bonus tips. If you lived closer, we could spend more time together. Now, depending on the situation, it's not necessarily impossible, right? But maybe it's very unlikely that this will happen. If we lived closer, we could, or we would, or, we Yeah, that's about it. If you lived closer, we could spend more time together. But unfortunately, you live very far away, so we can't, right? So this is second conditional, unlikely or difficult or even impossible situations that you are imagining happening. Now, the third conditional is kind of a bit of a crazy one. The third conditional, you could say, is the conditional of maybe of regret or imagining things different in the past. So the third conditional is hypothetical or imaginary situations in the past and their likely result. So what the result would be in the past if you went to the past. Imagine you had a time machine and you wanted to change something in the past. That is what the third conditional is expressing. Now, the third conditional is completely impossible unless the only way you could use the third conditional, and it could be true, is if you have a time machine. If you have a time machine, that's great. You can change these things. But if you don't, then unfortunately, the third conditional is only in your imagination. It's not something which is possible. Now, what is the structure of the third conditional? The third conditional structure is like this. If plus past perfect followed by would, have, and past participle. Again, we can switch these around with all of these conditionals. You can switch them around. So you could have would, have, past participle followed by if and past perfect. Probably the most common way is with if at the beginning. So let's take a look, shall we? So if past perfect would have past participle. Again, you could change the would in this case. You could change it to might have, could have. But let's stick to would for now because it's the most common. If I had apologized, he wouldn't have fired me. So from this sentence, you can see that unfortunately, he fired me. I was fired. But I'm imagining, if I had a time machine, if I had apologized, then he wouldn't have fired me. I would still have my job now. If I had prepared more, hopefully you don't feel like that about this class, but if I had prepared more, the presentation would have been much better. So we've got the past participle there, been, would have past participle, much better. Okay, if I had prepared more, I didn't prepare enough. In this situation, obviously, is the meaning. I didn't prepare, and now I regret it. Why didn't I prepare enough? If I'd prepared more, the presentation would have been much better. If I had been born, or if you had been born 1,000 years ago, imagine that. If you had been born 1,000 years ago, imagine how different the world was. If I had been born 1,000 years ago, my life or your life would have been very different. Okay, so past and past. Imagining something totally impossible, again, unless you have a time machine. If you do, let me know in the comments. One more example here. This is my story here. If I hadn't decided to teach adults instead of children, I might have given up teaching. So I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before. Maybe I have. But originally, when I first started teaching English, I was teaching children. And, it wasn't really my cup of tea. English TV Live, cup of tea there. Water, actually. It wasn't really my cup of tea. So I was thinking, I don't know, is this teaching thing for me? And then I thought, let me try teaching adults. And then once I started to teach adults, I realized, wow, this is much better. This is much, much better. So I continued teaching, and I'm still teaching now because of that decision. But if I hadn't decided or tried to teach adults, then maybe I might have given up teaching. And I'm happy that I didn't. So that's my story there. Now, with all of these conditionals, I would love to see, of course, your own examples in the comment box below, because if you don't practice, then, well, what is the expression? I can't remember right now. But basically what I wanted to say is I want you to practice in the comment box below, because practicing is the only way that you are going to remember how to use these conditionals. Just listening to me is not going to be enough. You have to practice using them. Okay, now, we're going to move on to the trickiest one of the lot, which is the mixed conditionals. So, we've looked so far, zero conditionals, things that are, just always true. First conditionals, things that are probably true in the present or future. Second conditionals, things that are unlikely or impossible in the present or future, or giving advice. And the third conditional, kind of imagining things in the past, wanting to change them, etc. Now, as you can see, they are kind of fixed to specific time periods. And you will often hear native English speakers not always stick to these rules. So we don't always describe things only using the first conditional, or the second conditional, or the third, or the zero conditional. It's kind of flexible. So it depends on the situation. Sometimes you want to talk about how something in the future affects the past, or something in the past affects the future, or the present combined with the past or the future. So this is where mixed conditionals come in. Now, this is definitely what I want you to practice in the comments below. So mixed conditionals, this is when we mix two different times, as I mentioned. So the past and the present, present and the past, present and the future, etc. And generally when we use the mixed conditionals, it is the second conditional plus the third conditional. That's generally how we do it. So let me give you some examples. Why don't we look at some examples that we have already looked at, okay, and see if we can change them a little bit. So I think we already looked at this example, right? If I were you, I might apply for that job, or I would apply for that job. So this, what conditional is this? This is the second conditional. Remember, for giving advice, we use the second conditional. If I were you, I would or I might apply for that job. So if past simple, might or would plus infinitive. Now we could change this a little bit, because in this case, we are talking about the present or the future. So right now or in the future, you are thinking about maybe applying for that job. But let's imagine that this position, this job application, is gone. It was in the past, somebody else has been given the job, and you did not apply for the job. Now, I could still give advice, even though this advice is not going to help you because it's something in the past. So I could say it like this. If I were you, I would have applied for that job. If I were you, I would have applied for that job. Or if I were you, I would have, asked for her number, or whatever the case might be. So it's something in the past that you can't change, but I'm giving you advice. Remember, advice is the second conditional, but now I'm using it here in a mixed conditional. So we have the second plus the third conditional here. Again, as I've said several times now, I want to see your examples in the comments below. We looked at this example already. Remember the second conditional? If I met Cristiano Ronaldo, I would ask him to take a selfie with me. Definitely, I would do that. But let's change the context a little bit. So let's say that I had an opportunity. Yesterday, he had a game in my city, in my area. and it's happened. The opportunity is gone. If I met Cristiano Ronaldo at yesterday's game, I would have asked him to take a selfie with me. So in this case, there was the game. For some reason, I missed the game. I didn't get a ticket, something. It's in the past. So in this case, we have the past mixed with... we have the present mixed with the past there. So we have the second conditional mixed with the third conditional. So the important thing here, now this is a little clue, and with the mixed conditional, you want to experiment. You want to experiment, and I encourage you to do so in the comments. When you add the time references, that will really help you to construct these mixed conditional sentences. So you can see here, for example, if I met Cristiano Ronaldo at yesterday's game, last week's game, last year's game, whatever it is, right? I'm clearly marking it at a specific moment in the past. If I want, now, we had this sentence as well before. If I won the lottery, okay, I'd fly around the world in first class. Second conditional sentence here. So if I won the lottery, it's past simple, but it's imagining something in the present or future. I'd fly around in first class. We're just sticking to the same tense here, right? However, we can mix it up a little bit. There's a few different ways we could change this sentence, and we change the meaning slightly. If I won the lottery last week, I'd be flying around the world in first class right now. So again, we have the time here. So if I won the lottery last week, right? Or if I had won the lottery last week, if I won the lottery, you can use either way. If I won the lottery last week, I'd be flying around the world in first class right now. So in this case, I'm using the present continuous sentence here. So I'm saying that I'm imagining that right now, in this very moment, in my imagination, if things had been different, I'm flying in first class right now. Unfortunately, it's not true. And it's probably not the best idea with the pandemic right now. If I won the lottery last week, I'd have flown first class many times already. So we have the second conditional with the third conditional there. So if I won the lottery last week, or just if I won the lottery, you could say in general, if I won the lottery, I'd have flown first class many times. The idea here, without getting too technical, is just that you can mix it up. You can mix and match. It depends on the situation. Depends on what you're trying to explain. Depends on the time period as well. So it's pretty flexible how you can use these conditionals. You don't always have to stick to the first conditional, second conditional, the third conditional exactly. You can kind of, it's flexible, is what I'm trying to say here. Now, this is kind of interesting. If I were free next week, I would have booked a trip for us. Now, in this case, I'm talking about the future. But I'm also talking about the past. Now, if I were free next week, if I say it like this, then we know that I'm not free next week, okay? I'm not free next week. But imagining that I were free, I would have booked a trip for us. Okay? If I were free next week, then before now, I would have booked a trip for us. Unfortunately, because of my schedule, I'm not free next week, and I couldn't book that trip, but I would have. So you can see we've mixed the future and the past together, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of a specialized situation. If I were taking that test tomorrow, I'm not. If I were taking that test tomorrow, I'd be pretty nervous right now. So in this case, we have the future mixed with the present. So if I were taking that test tomorrow, which maybe you are, for example, I would be pretty nervous right now. Maybe you could say that to a friend, but it's not going to make them feel very good. But that's mixing the future and the present. Now, probably the most common way that you will see the mixed conditional used, the most common way, is going to be with the third conditional followed by, I don't want to give you a rude gesture there, followed by the second conditional. This is the most common way, I would say. So, for example, if I had eaten lunch, third conditional, I wouldn't be hungry right now, second conditional. So this is the past and the present together. If I hadn't eaten lunch, if that did not happen in the past, then right now I would not be hungry, bringing it back to the present. If she had told the truth, third conditional again, she would feel better now. If she had just told the truth, why didn't she tell the truth? She would feel so much better now. Right? If she had told the truth, third conditional in the past, then second conditional, present, she would feel better now. So if you just stuck to the third conditional in that case, you would say, if she had told the truth, she would have felt better. It's more general. But if I want to bring it to this moment right now, then it would be better to use the mixed conditional like this. You know, if she told the truth, she would feel better right now. It is pretty confusing, and I have a feeling that I may need to make another video about the mixed conditional to try and explain it even more clearly. But hopefully that gives you a basic idea that the mixed conditional is something you can have fun with, something you can play around with. And it depends on the situation and what you are trying to express in that moment. And if you use it correctly, if you use it accurately, then it can really make you sound even more fluent and natural in English. So I highly encourage you to practice using the mixed conditional and not only stick to the 0, first, second, and third conditionals. Now, before we finish, I want to give you a couple of bonus tips. Now, one of our members in our private community actually asked this question earlier. I think it was Elif, one of our members in Turkey, unless I'm mistaken, EnglishTVLive.com. So the question was, should I use if I were or if I was? If I were, if I was. So, for example, if I were you, if I was you. Now, the answer is, technically, if you are talking about hypotheticals, we use the subjunctive mood. It's called the subjunctive mood, very grammatical term. You don't need to worry about it. It just basically means imaginary, hypothetical situations. If I were younger, if I were you, if I were shorter or taller, etc. These are hypothetical situations, right? So it's the subjunctive mood. Now, subjunctive mood, you can check out. There's lots of videos on YouTube that will explain this for you. But the basic idea is related to hypothetical situations. And even a more important thing is that it's kind of dying out. It's kind of old-fashioned. Now, of course, you can say if I were. It's perfectly perfect. But I've noticed these days more and more people are using if I was. Okay? So was is becoming even more common in this situation. So you can use either one. If I were, if I was. Now, technically, if I were is correct, but at least in speaking, you are going to hear if I was quite a lot. Definitely among British people, for sure, you will hear if I was. You're going to hear it a lot. So as I said here, if I was becoming more and more common in speaking among native English speakers. I just wanted to mention that. But the point is, either one is okay. And the last point before we finish here. Now, this is related to the first conditional. I have heard English students from time to time, I don't know if you've made this mistake, but I do hear this from time to time. In the first clause, the if clause, some students will say something like, if you will go there, if you will say that, if you will do that. Now, you don't want to use will here in that clause. Will should be used in the result. Okay? If you go there, you will like it. Or if you eat that, you will like it. If you talk to him, he will agree. Okay? So will should be in the result. You should not use it in the if clause. It's not correct. There is actually a fixed expression which says if you will, but it's not connected to conditionals. So, for example, how do we say this again? It's like, for example, I think blah 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 if you will. How would I even say that? If you will, it's kind of like in my opinion, or to make it short, if you will. I can't even think of how to say it right now. There is a fixed expression, if you will, but it's not connected to conditionals. Maybe we can talk about that another time. The important thing is in conditionals, you don't want to say it like this. You want to have will in the results in that first conditional. So that is about it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was a useful little review of all of the conditionals. Hopefully your brain is not exploding right now, because mine is a little bit. If you already knew all of this, then I'm happy. But I would still like to see your example sentences in the comment box below, because by practicing, that is the only way you are going to improve and get better. And I will, of course, give you feedback in your comments. But thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, it would make me happy. It will make me happy if you could give this video a thumbs up. And if you really liked it, then it would make me extremely happy if you would subscribe to this channel, Lloyd's Everyday English. But until next time, everybody, I will see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.